Have you taken breaks from drinking and you feel great, but then you always go back? Today, I'm going to address why we do this and what you can do to stay stopped.
Welcome to Sober and Lit,
the podcast for women who want to get sober, stay sober, and live a life that's way more lit than it ever was with wine.
We're your hosts, Ruby and Susan, two alcohol freedom coaches keeping it real with stories, tools, and zero judgment.
Whether you're sober curious or all in, you're in the right place.
Let's feel lit, alcohol free.
Hey, welcome back to the Sober and Lit podcast. It's Ruby and Susan here today, and we are so excited to be here with you. Hey, Ruby.
Hey, I'm so excited for the listeners to be here with us, and this is my favorite time.
Oh, me too. So today's topic actually came from our Sober and Lit Facebook group, and when you join, we ask how we can support you, and a member said, how to not go back to drinking. And this is a very typical way that gray area drinkers are. We can stop, but then we always go back. And the problem with this is that the drinking train only goes one direction, right? So if you've used alcohol as a coping mechanism for stress or overwhelm, or even for fun and connection, your brain has created neural pathways, which are like grooves or highways or train tracks in your brain. And when we don't travel on those tracks, they atrophy. But the minute that we reintroduce alcohol, they light up again and we go right back to our old patterns. Now, maybe not right away. And what this also teaches your brain is, so this happened to me many times. I would go back to drinking, and the first few weeks, maybe even a month, I would be very controlled. I would follow my rules. But in time, yes, I would go right back to drinking as much or more than I was drinking before. And I have seen this in every single one of the clients I've worked with. This is very common. So what is happening? WTF, right?
Yes.
You feel
and
better.
You describe it so well. You know, the train tracks or the neural pathways that are formed like a super highway.
Yeah.
I love when you explain it like that, Coach Susan. So,
oh, thank you. Yeah, people like that visual of like putting down the roadblock and just not driving on that road. But the minute you take the detour sign down and you start driving on it, you go pretty fast.
Right
pretty easily. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you feel better not drinking, you're cruising along, and then all of a sudden it sounds like a good idea and it sucks you back in. And so how about you, Ruby? Did you ever experience that?
Absolutely. I had all those rules like you were talking about, although I think I had gone way farther down the track, so to speak, and I couldn't even get a day or two. I would say I was not in the gray area drinker. I was a heavy drinker where I just couldn't even get a day or two. But I do know when I was trying to stop drinking, really trying hard. Like I did a 30-day, dry January, and I had some success. And right when it lit it, I think I drank on my birthday and it lit it up. And then I had such a hard time going back to stopping. So it was just a very start. And it felt like it lit right back up. And all of a sudden I was maybe drinking one glass or two. I would right back to, one or two bottles, just like that.
Yeah.
So I really relate to the listener's question.
Yeah, it's really scary. Yeah. And I noticed that in COVID, after all of 2019, taking many, and if you've listened to our podcast for a while, you've probably heard that story, but many 30-day breaks, 60-day breaks. And then when I went back to drinking during COVID, it went back to the way I was drinking before so fast that it was actually scary. It scared me. And I like to use the analogy of you're on a train, the train's only moving one direction. You can get off at the stop, but if you get back on the train, it keeps moving in the direction towards the bridge that's out. It keeps moving on the alcohol use disorder spectrum into the darker gray into the black, so to speak. And every time you try to get off, it gets harder and harder. And that's what I see with clients too. So that's why it's really important to address what is going on here and why do we keep going back. Now, we've talked about this before. It's an addictive substance. And it does lure us back in, right? And also there's something that we talked about on another podcast episode, which is fading effect bias, FAB, or I like to say the fab that is not fabulous. And we have an episode on that. It's episode 17, way back, an OG episode, but it's so important that we addressed it early on in our podcast. So I would suggest if you're a new listener, go back and listen to episode 17 about fading effect bias.
Yeah. And fading effect bias is when you start to romanticize.
Yeah.
Like, you have some time away from alcohol, maybe, a month off, and all of a sudden that it looks really romantic. It looks sexy. It looks like it tastes really good. And you forget that the reality is, brain fog in the morning, waking up in the middle of the night, like all those negative consequences. So It's a really good episode. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And it's just the way our brain is. It's sort of like what happens with childbirth, right? We forget the worst parts of it and we just remember the beautiful baby. We romanticize, and that's the only reason why we would ever go back and have another one, right? After having one. So it's a normal mechanism in our brain, but it also affects us in our drinking. And it's really important to understand that. But I wanted to bring up the question that we answered in that episode, because there are a couple other things at play that I think also play into why we go back to drinking. So I'm just going to read the question. I'm 31 days alcohol-free today. Woohoo! Longest streak I've had in months. Today is the first real struggle I've had with the wine witch showing up all day. There are days when I feel great and it feels easy, and then days like today where the struggle is real. I just want the struggle to be over. I feel like the fading effect bias gets me every time. The longer I go, the more I think a drink seems fine. I know it's not, but my brain is not accepting that answer. So there's the fading effect bias, but I think there are two other things to address here. And one of them is you have to have tools to manage your nervous system for the struggle. Like she mentioned, the struggle. Mm-hmm. It is uncomfortable. We get dysregulated. And when we've used alcohol as a coping mechanism, and that's our only tool, and if we don't have any other tools, we're going to go back to that every time. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and the second one is an underlying belief, and this is probably for gray area drinkers, but any drinker really, because you can always look around and see somebody who's drinking more than you, is an underlying belief that my drinking isn't that bad. So those are two things, but I want to address the part of the comment that says, I know it's not, but my brain is not accepting the answer. And so I want to say, which part of your brain? Okay. Right. So I'm going to use, and now if you're listening, you won't see my hand, but I want to use this model of teaching you about your brain a little bit. And it's from Dan Sullivan called the hand model. So I'm putting my hand up like I'm giving you a high five. And then I'm putting my thumb inside and then I'm closing my hand. And now it looks like a fist. Okay. And this is, so the top part here with my fingers is your prefrontal cortex. The bottom around my wrist is your subconscious brain. That's where the wine witch and all your habits live. And then my little thumb here is your limbic brain. These are your feelings. And I like to call this little Susan. This is like all my past feelings. And this is where you get triggered. And then your fingers again are your prefrontal cortex, which is when they're over everything, it's nice and compact and you're in control, right? Your prefrontal cortex is in control. When we get triggered, and usually the trigger is here at our feeling level, in our feelings. Then our brain, we get dysregulated and whoof, now I'm like I'm doing the sign of 4, and my fingers are flapping. I like to say, then our prefrontal cortex goes offline and it's like flapping in the breeze. Then we're all twirled up. That's what I used to say a lot too. And so then our subconscious brain is the one that's in control. And it just wants to solve this problem with, in my case, lots of wine, right? To manage and to numb or to soothe my nervous system. And so the thing that you need, the tool that you need, is a way to get your brain back on. Because at that time, we're not accessing our thinking brain. It's offline. So we need to get it back on. And how do we do this? Well, there's lots of things to try and experiment with, and you have to find what works best for you. And this is sort of like what we talked about last week with Brandy. Brandy talked a lot about emotional regulation and some tools that you can use to manage your nervous system. And it's really important to have those tools because we don't want to leave a void. We want to have ways to get ourselves back into regulation, get our thinking brain on, and then we can make the choices and the decisions with our thinking brain. And I know that this kind of work has made all the difference for me in my sober lifestyle. This is for you if you're struggling with your drinking now, if you're trying to stop, or even if you've been stopped for a while. Nervous system regulation is just, it's like the next step in emotional sobriety, I think. And I just loved all the tools that Brandy shared last week. So that's another episode you could go back and listen to if you haven't. But for me, I've dug into this more with my training with Jolene Park and with this other course I took, Primal Trust, to learn more ways to manage my nervous system. And then I share those things with my clients. So what are your thoughts, Ruby? What tools do you like to use to regulate your nervous system?
Love listening to everything you're saying and your visuals. So I hope people can go watch on YouTube too. So you can see
true. Yeah.
Her hand flapping around. But no, it's really true. I guess for me, breath work. Breath work is my absolute go-to. I love it. There's, we've mentioned it on many different episodes throughout.
Yes.
There's lots of different types of breath work, but it's really about just calming your nervous system down. And I think the easiest one is like the 2x breath, where you breathe in for 2 but out for 4. So you lengthen your out breath. But yes, that is my go-to. And that's what I share with all of my clients, like all the different breath techniques to just calm yourself down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that we offer in the lit section of the podcast at the very end are these tools. I call them seeds that we've planted in our life to help us practice these calming nervous system regulation practices. And yes, the 2x breath was the one that I was going to mention because it's the easiest one to learn. It's the first one that I teach all my clients. But one thing I really want to note, and for everyone to be aware of, is that it's not about never being dysregulated. You will be dysregulated. And I think this is also speaks to that quote of, today I'm in the struggle. It's like, yes, you're gonna be dysregulated in your life. That is just this is our body's way of responding to the world around us. We go up and down in what's called the polyvagal ladder. But the problem is that when we've used alcohol as our only tool to either upshift, to overfunction, or downshift, to soothe and to put the brakes on and relax, that we've never learned how to regulate our central nervous system without alcohol, basically. And that's how we can get into trouble. We get into the struggle, we get dysregulated, and we have no other tool. Of course, you're going to default to the tool that works because you're desperate in that moment to feel better, right? Because we're not used to feeling uncomfortable, number one, and we don't have any other tools. So there's tons of different practices, but I love the one that you brought up, Ruby. So you breathe in, like you said, to like a count of 3 and breathe out for the count of 6, or you can do 4 and 8. And the mechanism here is the longer exhale. Mm-hmm. The longer exhale calms the nervous system. So even if you don't count, although the counting is helpful because it also helps to engage your prefrontal cortex. Right. So that also helps you kind of engage. And, I've shared these tools in my group programs with my one-on-one clients, and they work, but you have to practice them. But here's what one of the people in a recent group said: Susan, you showed me simple techniques to get relief from stress and anxiety, and I use them most days. And I'm like,
wow, yay.
Yeah. Because we want to have the tools. We want to have them. We need to practice them, and we need to experiment with different ones and find the ones that really work for you, your go-to ones. Then once you get your prefrontal cortex back on, and I'm showing the fist again, like you're in tight, then we can think about making a different choice. Then we can think about our thinking. But when we're dysregulated, we can't do a thought turnaround because we're twirling. Our brain's flapping in the breeze. And that's where sometimes people get frustrated, or they're just like, I don't know what to do. I can't really think straight right now, right? When you're super dysregulated. And it's not a good feeling at all. But you do feel a lot better when you realize you have a tool. Yeah. So what I would suggest is try the 2x breath that we just mentioned if you've never tried it before, even if you have tried it. And some people, you know what, I see the look of doubt on their face when I first introduce this, when I say breath work is what helps you calm your nervous system, because they are like, girl, breathing is not going to help me when I'm in the middle, when I'm dysregulated. I get that look and I'm like, well, have you tried? And so, just try it. Try it other times. Practice it when you're not in a super emergency situation. Try it when you're not triggered to drink. Try it when you're driving, because that's another time when we get triggered. If you're late or you're, on your way somewhere that you're feeling anxious about, like on the way to the airport. I did breath work one time all the way up to the airport, which is about a 50 minute drive. And when I got there, I was so calm and regulated. I didn't know who I was. I was like, who is this person? Because I'm usually a nervous traveler. And I was just like, here's my luggage. I was like floating through the airport. I was just like,
such a good
whoa.
example. Yeah.
Yeah, but just practice it and do the 2x breath 4 times and just see how you feel afterwards. Just experiment. Again, curiosity, awareness. A first step is being aware I'm dysregulated, and then going, okay, you know what? Before I choose to drink, I'm going to try this crazy breath technique that Susan suggested. So, yeah. So the other thing that, I talked about was the second thing, which was my drinking is not that bad. And that's a deep one that is often hidden. And I think it will take another episode to unpack, because it's often hidden in shame around our drinking, underneath another deep need that we have to prove we're a normal drinker, or something else going on. And so tune in again and we'll address that next time. But for today, I hope that you got some insight and new ideas from this topic. I would love to hear it if you try the 2x breath, or if you have another breath practice that you've used before and this is just sparking your brain to try it again. And if you want more tips and inspiration, join my newsletter, because that is where I offer more free tips. I've offered many different breathing exercises to my newsletter community and different tools. So there's link in the show notes, or head over to my website, Susan Larkin Coaching, and jump on my newsletter, because I'd love to have you join my community. And now, Ruby, we are at the time of our podcast when we share even more tips. We talk about what we are doing to feel lit, alcohol-free in our life. And again, like I said, a lot of the things we share are also things that help calm our nervous system. So you're going to get a gem today from Ruby. So
gem from a gem?
A gem from a gem, my gem Ruby. Yay, yes.
Well, I don't know if this one will help you regulate your nervous system, but what I was thinking of today when I was preparing for what am I doing in my life to feel lit? Yeah. And a couple weeks ago was my 56th birthday. And thank you. And it was really cool. I realized that my birthday was the 17th, and it was like the start of the Chinese New Year, which is the year of the fire horse. It also was like all this auspicious stuff was happening in the Saturn aligning or something. And so not that I'm super into all that, but I do like, just like a brand new year, of our, calendar years, it's really special. And I thought it was cool that it was on my birthday, because last year was the snake, and so it's kind of like I want to shed all of the 2025, and like the last year was not the best. I want to put that in the dumpster, right?
Yeah, me too.
And and then the fire horse, I looked it up, and it's a year of like it's horse energy. Think of like galloping, and like there's momentum, courage, independence, adventure, breaking free from old restraints. And so it's like feeling lit, right? It really makes me feel good. It's like a year of movement, less hiding, more living. And so I thought, ask yourself this question, like, instead of what should I do? Maybe that was your old question, but your new question could be like, what matters enough to spend my remaining decades on? Like, really, I really feel that I'm in this like second half of my life, and yeah, what matters most, and start to really do the things that make me feel lit. And all of those words are so fun, right? Like adventure and courage and momentum, and yeah, like a horse galloping. And we're going to have soon, we've already recorded it, but an episode on equus recovery.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
it's the year of the horse. Yeah. So you have to keep listening to hear that. It's coming soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is cool. Yeah. Horses are just majestic, and they're filled with, momentum and strength and power. And so I don't know. I think you can like look at the new year, like 2026 calendar year, or you can choose to, the Chinese New Year, or you can go with, the seasons too. That's also a really good time to maybe look at these questions. Like, am I really living my true life, or doing the things I enjoy? And start introducing some of these feel lit things that we've talked about over the last couple of years on our podcast of breath work. And yeah. What about you? What do you think about the year of the horse?
I love that. I love it. I'm ready. I would love to have 2025 in the dumpster as well. And I did shed some things. It was a hard year. And I think, and also think about this with the energy, the horse energy, what a better time to start exploring your drinking. Like there's an energy behind this that, maybe you were shedding things last year. You were experimenting like I did for an entire year, like I did in 2019, and you're ready to break free. I love that there's like an Instagram post that people share that has like the horse breaking free from the carousel. And just running free. And like, if you've been on the merry-go-round, the drinking merry-go-round, around and around and doing the same things and not getting anywhere, break free and gallop away like this horse. Yeah.
I love that visual. Yeah. It's so true. And you can decide at any time to break free. It really takes a decision, intention, and oftentimes, having a coach to help can be excellent. So we're here to help.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We are definitely here to help you. We hope that the episode helps you. We love our listeners so much. You guys are so awesome, and we love hearing from you. So please email Ruby and I and let us know even topics that you want us to cover on the podcast. We want this podcast to serve you. That's what we're here for. So thank you again for being here today. And remember to do something today to help you feel lit. Thanks so much for listening to the Sober and Lit podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps get the word out.
And remember, do something today to help you feel lit.
See you next week.